Hello everybody, my name is Archie Dodge here with IMAGINiT Technologies. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about data shortcuts versus XREFs and when to use those. This is a question that I get a lot. When should I use a data shortcut over an XREF? So I'm going to try to give you my general rule of thumb, maybe give you some ideas so that it'll help you out in your daily activities. Now I do have a project here. As you can see, so this is going to be a generic project, but as you can see here, I do have a civil folder. Inside the civil folder, I have an external references folder. Now, this is kind of how I break down my civil 3D assets. So as you can see, I have dedicated drawings for my alignments, corridors, existing topos, anything that is your civil 3D assets. I tend to break those apart into their own files. That way, we could use data shortcuts when we need them. And everything is kind of dedicated to their own files. This helps out for processing and things like that. So we'll get into this. I'm going to start off with the existing topo surface. I want to open these up, kind of show you what's in here, get familiar with these, and then we'll start using these in both XREFs and data shortcuts and explain when to use those at what time. So I'll start right here with the existing. Actually, you know what? We'll start right here with the base file. So this base file right here is basically just a two-dimensional drawing. It has everything at 0 elevation, and basically this will be used for our base file so that we could XREF this in just so that we can get some understanding of where to lay out our roadways, alignments, other assets like this. So that's what we're going to be seeing here in the base file. Go ahead and close that. We'll go into the existing ground surface and see how that one was created. And I want to make a few comments on the existing surface and actually all of these civil 3D assets. So as you can see here in the existing ground surface or topo surface drawing, as you can see, there is basically nothing in this drawing but the existing surface. Now this surface has already been generated with all of the definition from the survey. So once all of that is done, you'll notice that I've actually saved this in a style that I intend to show on 9 out of 10 of my drawings. So if you typically show your topo in a screened fashion at 1 to 5, for example, you'll go ahead and set that here so that whenever we do decide to use this as an XREF, it already has the style and look that we're looking for. All right. But now that this has been created, you can see that data shortcuts have been created out of these surfaces. So this one's ready to go in both XREF and data shortcut status. All right. And again, I want to stress that I have saved this in a style that I intend to show on my plans 9 out of 10 times. Now, there will be those times where, you know, maybe a topographic map where you need to bolden these contours up. That will be kind of handled through the layers. But yeah, this will be 9 out of 10. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this where it is and close out, and we'll move into the next assets. In this case, let me go ahead and jump into the alignments. Oh, and by the way, for the topo that I just showed there, notice I did not show any labels also. And I'll explain that whenever we get once we start XREFing and data shortcutting. All right, so the next step in our workflow, kind of creating these civil 3D assets, now that we have the existing topo, in here in the alignments, you can see that we have our base file XREF'd into our drawing. Note that this is an overlay. All right, if you are unfamiliar between overlay and attached XREFs, basically what's going to happen here, this overlay will be left behind. So if I take this alignments drawing and XREF it into another drawing, essentially what will be left behind, I'm going to go ahead and hide this base file. This is the only thing that will be XREF. So remember, overlaid XREFs get left behind when you XREF this drawing into another. All right, so as you can see here, this is a very clean drawing. This is just an alignment. Now these alignments do have profiles associated to these. All right, so this kind of leads into the idea of where to display your profiles. all right, and cross sections. Now you do have the ability to display these here in your drawing with your alignment. So if that is something that you are familiar with and that is kind of your current workflow, that is absolutely acceptable. As you can see here, I can go ahead and drop mine in on the side. And at this point, remember, anything that is displayed here, you could XREF this over. So if you wanted to create your production drawings of your profiles or cross sections, you could easily do it here in the alignments drawing. As you can see here, just dropping this in. Otherwise, if you want to put your profiles and cross sections on a dedicated drawing, you could absolutely delete the profile view that these profiles and cross sections are assigned to or associated to. And as you can see, it does not delete the profiles themselves. Okay. So if you have a dedicated drawing to profiles and cross sections, again, you're going to want to create data shortcuts out of these, all right, so that you can actually display these profiles and cross sections in their dedicated drawing. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So as you can see, as a review of our, oh, this is actually hidden. A review of the alignments drawing. As you can see, we have an XREF in our drawing as an overlay, so that when we XREF this drawing again in another drawing, the base file gets left behind. If I need the base file in a particular drawing, I will XREF it directly into it. When it comes to the surfaces, as you can see here, I did create a data shortcut into this drawing here. So this allows me to sample the existing ground surface. So as you can see, if you need to sample any data from a surface or any other Civil 3D asset, that is when you're going to be using a data shortcut. All right, and we'll explain the alternative using an XREF here very, very shortly. All right. And I'm only going to open up one more when it comes to the Civil 3D assets, and it will be the stormwater pipe network. All right, so again, this drawing was basically generated the same that we did with the alignment. So as you can see here in our external references, we have our base file as an overlay, so we know where to lay out our pipe network. Go ahead and hide this so we can see what else we have. All right, the alignment. I do have an alignment in here. If I take a look at this, notice this is data reference. So anytime you're laying out pipe networks and you need to reference an alignment, those would be considered data shortcuts. Now, when it comes to the style of this, you can see that I actually created a style that I can see it, but it will not plot. So essentially, if I took this drawing and XREF'd it into another drawing, the only thing that we would see would be the pipe network itself. So this geometry that we're seeing here. Also, if you need a surface for your rim elevations, obviously those would be data shortcutted. The style would be set to no display. So again, our goal in these Civil 3D assets is to show just those assets that the drawing references to. Everything else is basically going to be set to a no display or a no plot style. All right. Once you have that, note that you can go ahead and create your data shortcuts just in case you need these later. All right. Go ahead and end that object isolation. And now that we are familiar with our Civil 3D assets, let's go ahead and start talking about when to use our XREFs versus when to use our data shortcut. Now, obviously, in the design process, when you're sharing these the data between each of these asset files, you will need a data shortcut for that. So just keep that in mind. But what happens when we move into a production drawing? So I'm going to go ahead and use this drawing here. Now I have not saved it yet, so let me go ahead and click Save. We'll put it into our project folder. And in this case, I actually separate my production drawings from my external references and Civil 3D assets. So I'll just go ahead and put that in this drawing. We'll call this one data shortcut. DREF versus XREF. All right, so now that we have that, let's talk about when to use an XREF. So if you are planning to show this in a plan view, on your production drawing, and you're just trying to look at it from plan view, typically an XREF will work fine. So right here in my external reference panel or palette, I'll go ahead and attach my DWG. And since I have everything broken down into their own dedicated folder and their own drawings, basically I get to pick and choose. All right. So if this production drawing that I'm currently working in represents a drainage plan for pipe networks, I would most likely want to use my alignments. Remember, the base file that's here in the alignments is an overlay, so that will be left behind. All of my Civil 3D styles have been turned off or no plot. So whenever I reference this, I will only bring in the alignments from this reference file. I'll also want my base drawing so that I could actually see the line work where everything needs to be. Since it has been left behind as an overlay here in the alignments drawing, I will need to bring in the base file itself. Any corridors that I would like to bring in, I'll bring those in as well. Topo, if I need to show the topo, I'll go ahead and select that one. And finally, if this is the stormwater pipe network, we'll definitely want that one as well. All right, so as you can see here, when you're referencing files, and they're broken down in the manner that I do this, you can see that you could actually reference multiple XREFs at one time. So I'll just go ahead and click OK. All right. I always use overlay just for the purpose of if I ever decide to XREF this drawing again, I only want to see the geometry and objects that I have actually drawn in this file, not all of the XREFs that have been referenced to it. Also, I like to use the new default value of relative path so that it's not trying to look for a specific drive number or letter. So with all of that, I'll go ahead and click OK. This will take a few moments to overlay each of my XREFs, but once that is done, I'll go ahead and zoom to extents to see the result. Now I do need to kind of move some things around, so selecting my topo, I'll go ahead and push that to the back. My base file, I'll push those to the back as well. All right, so a little bit of cleanup. And as you can see here, using an XREF, I can see everything that I need. I'll take this one step farther. You can see I'm here in a layout tab. I do not have a title block in here, but I do have a viewport. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the viewport, set my viewport scale, find something that looks suitable for this viewport. Let's see, 1 to 100. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to actually trace this viewport. And I'm going to go ahead and push this to the model space. So I'm going to trace it. As you can see here, I now have a polyline. Right here on the Home tab under Modify Panel dropdown, I could actually change the space to this. Now notice that I did orientate our layout or our viewport, and we set the scale and locked it. Make sure you do that so that this does not shift around on you, because once we push this polyline into model space, you can see that when we switch back to model space, we could actually see where that viewport is. Now I do this so that we could actually clip our XREFs right at this boundary. All right. Now this is going to help out for processing. By default, Civil 3D does have a setting set up so that it will only process what is showing here. All right, and I'll show you that setting here very, very shortly as soon as I get done clipping these. Now it does seem to take a little bit of time to clip this, but notice that this, remember, this does save some time, especially on larger processing projects. All right, so just keep that in mind. So now that I've clipped that, let me show you the setting that is going to drive the processing on this. All right, so if I go into my options, under the Open and Save tab, you'll notice right here about midway down on the right hand side, we have this Demand Load XREF enabled with copies. Now that is the default value, and that is what we're looking for. Basically, if that is set, anything that is clipped out from an XREF will not be processed, so just keep that in mind. All right, so now that we have our plan view here as an XREF, one of the things that people tend to do is use a data shortcut to a surface so that they can label this. All right. What is little known to most people is that you could absolutely label your Civil 3D assets as they are in an XREF. So right here in the Annotate tab, I'll go ahead and click on my Add Labels toolbar. I really like this one that floats around because I can go ahead and swap between all of these different features. So if I need to label my contours of my surface, I'll go ahead and choose my surface feature. We'll change our label type to contour multiple and any other styles that we may need. So with that, I'll go ahead and click OK. Notice that it's asking for a surface. Now, we have not data referenced any surfaces into this drawing. We have only XREF those, but I could absolutely select that directly through the XREF and then just go ahead and strike my line for my contours. All right. So this is, I see this a lot where people don't know that you could actually label Civil 3D assets through the XREF. So this right here, now that you understand that you can do this, this should open up a lot more workflows for you. All right. Now there are some labels that you'll find here that you cannot label through this little floating panel here. One in particular, as you can see for alignments, it does not allow you to set the stations and other label sets. No worries, we can still do that. So right here under the Annotate tab, the Add Labels, if we drop that down, we can absolutely find our alignments and then add Edit Station Labels. So if I click on that and find my alignment, you can see that I could still import labels. And again, this was all done through the XREF. All right, I'll go ahead and throw all labels on there. We have a profile. Notice I do not have my alignment or my profiles data shortcutted in here. It is finding all of this through the XREF. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and click OK. Now there are a couple labels outside of the view. These are part of a group, so if you try to select them, they tend to delete the entirety of the group. That is not something that we want. So if you do want to clean this type of thing up, as you hold down Control, you can actually select just those label elements. All right. With those selected, I'll go ahead and hit Delete, and as you can see, that cleans this up really, really nice. All right, so this is typically how I handle my plan views using XREFs. As you can see here, it is the Civil 3D assets saved in the way that I want to show these in my plan views. All right, now what about the data shortcuts? When do we actually need those? Now we've already talked about one of them. When you're actually creating these assets, the Civil 3D assets, you will need to kind of share surfaces and alignments for references, structure, rim elevations, that sort of things. All right, so keep that in mind. Beyond the design process, though, there are some times that you will need data shortcuts. One of those would be if you decide to show cross sections and plan views in here as well. So if you do need to show a profile or cross sections, you will need to create a reference to your alignments. So let me go ahead and do one real quick. I'll do Jeffrey's Ranch Road. Notice that we did have our design profile created in the dedicated drawing for the alignments, and then we data reference those. So if I do need to show a design profile here, I could actually create a reference to this design profile. Notice the profile style will leave the same. But for the alignment, when that comes in, we're actually going to set that to a style that will not display. So let me get rid of these labels that came in as I chose the default values. All right. Now the resulting alignment that came in, I'm going to go ahead and change the style to profiles and sections. And basically what this does, here in plan view, this is a no plot layer, so we will not see this alignment plot. But now that I have my reference to my design profile, right here in our drawing, we can now go ahead and show our profile. So here on home view, we'll go to profile view, create profile view, and then any alignment and profile that is here, we'll go ahead and drop those in. So again, if you need to show your profiles or cross sections in a dedicated drawing rather than the source drawing of your alignments, you will need a data shortcut. All right. One other time, I'll show you one more time that you'll need data shortcuts. Now, I will say you don't need them, but I do recommend this, and this relates to volume calculations. So I actually like to create dedicated drawings to volume calculation. So go ahead and create a directory for this. I'll call it volume calcs. And for this one, since this is a dedicated drawing, I'm going to go ahead and call this one existing topo versus final grade topo. All right, so I'll go ahead and save that here. And at this point, we do need our data shortcut. So again, I'm going to go ahead and use my existing surface or existing site and my Jeffries Ranch Road final grade. Create a reference. Notice I can actually do this for both of these at the same time. All right, we'll go ahead and zoom extents. And here it is. So at this point, we now have these data shortcutted in, so I can go ahead and create a new 10 volume surface. And again, whenever I create my 10 volume surfaces, I always set my base and comparison surfaces first. Just so that I can use those in my naming. So my base will be existing site, and my comparison will be Jeffries Ranch Road final grade. And I'm going to use these two surfaces to name my 10 volume surface. So I'll call this an existing site versus Jeffries Ranch Road. All right, and click OK. Obviously, if you need any cut and fill factor, that will be there for you as well. Now that this is a dedicated drawing for volume calculations, I can actually turn off the styles for my two main surfaces and show just my existing surface volume calculation. And then at this point, if I need to show any cut and fill color banding, I can absolutely do that right here. And again, this is going to be used for, let me go ahead and do, let's do 2, drop this down. All right, that'll be good for our purposes. And as you can see, this is a dedicated drawing for volume calculations. So if I close out this drawing, make any changes to my design surface, all I need to do is just open that file up again. And once it is open, all I need to do is jump up to the Analyze tab, open up my volumes dashboard, and make sure that I have my volume surface added. And there is my volume calculation. So again, if you're doing any type of comparison between surfaces, things like that, data shortcuts are the way to go. And as you can see here, I actually have a dedicated drawing to this one, so I know exactly what this will be whenever I open up this drawing, what surface it references, and it will give me my volumes very quick. Notice I am using dedicated drawings for a lot of this. Now when it comes to Civil 3D, breaking these things down into their dedicated drawings will help you out when it comes to processing things like that. So eliminate as many crashes as you can by keeping everything kind of dedicated into their own drawings. So as a recap, just remember, if all you need to do is show it on plan view, XREFs work out just fine. And keep in mind, you do have the ability to label these Civil 3D assets directly through the reference. That right there alone should open a lot of new workflows up to you if you are not familiar with that. When it comes to showing both plan and the profiles, in that case, you may need to use a mix of your XREFs and data shortcuts. Just remember, if you are using this, you may want to show your plan view strictly from your XREFs. So any styles that show on plan view, you may want to either turn those off or set those to a no plot so that you can show just the referenced data within the XREFs, or I'm sorry, within the profiles or sections type of views. Also, anytime you're doing any calculations or comparison between surfaces, again, a dedicated drawing for that. Data reference those in, and then you can go ahead and get those values as needed. All right, so I hope this helps out. This is one of those questions that I come across almost daily. When to use a data reference, when to use an XREF, and I find most people are unaware that you can actually label your Civil 3D assets directly through an XREF. So now that you know that, hopefully this will save you some time and also file size as well.